In this video, we are going to take a look at the retirement of Lise Bluder from Iowa. Is this a Seinfeld situation? As well, we will take a look at UConn's non-conference schedule as they just added another piece to the puzzle. Before we start, if you like the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. Okay, let's get into this. So, surprising news today broke when Lise Bluder of Iowa announced unexpectedly that she is retiring. The good news is it does not appear like it's anything health-related or anything of the sort. It just seems like she had time to reflect after the season and just decided at the age of 63, it is the right time to step away. In her statement, she said, "After the season ended, I spent time with our student athletes and coaches reviewing the season and preparing those moving on for what comes next," she wrote. "With that also came personal contemplation about what this journey has meant to me, how to best champion this program and what the future looks like for my family and me. And then taking some time away with my husband, David, it became clear to me that I am ready to step aside." Now, as I mentioned in the opening, this has the feel of the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza learns during the episode, you want to leave on a good note. And I essentially think that is where Bluder is at, as Iowa is set up to be pretty good next year. Obviously, they're not going to be as great as they were with Caitlin Clark, but they were going to be very competitive and make the tournament, maybe get to the Sweet 16, depending on how they go. But really, it was never going to get any better than having Caitlin Clark on your team, as you were the it team in college basketball. Regardless of how good they were next year, it was always going to have that feeling of a bit of a letdown, as she is just that once-in-a-generation player, and it's just electric when she is in the building. In terms of her legacy, I think that she will make the Hall of Fame. I think pretty much everybody makes the Hall of Fame. But she was a really good coach. Her overall record was 884 wins and 396 losses. She came to Iowa in 2000. Her record at Iowa was 528 wins and 254 losses. They made 18 tournaments under her 24-year reign. And obviously the last 4 years have been simply magic having Caitlin Clark on the Iowa basketball team. And as much as Caitlin Clark has helped make Bluder and Iowa basketball, I think it's undeniable how much Bluder helped make Caitlin Clark. And I should clarify when I say that, Caitlin Clark was going to be a great basketball player regardless of what school she went to. The reports were UConn were not interested in her because they already had Paige Beckers to run the point. But even if she would have gone to UConn or Notre Dame, it still would not have been as fun, because at either of those programs, they were so loaded with talent, she would have had to fit into their system. But at Iowa, her natural style of play was able to be embraced, and it just simply flourished, obviously. The other thing I think is undeniable is that Caitlin Clark improved as a player and grew as a person while at Iowa. I think it's pretty clear when she got there initially, she could be petulant at times and be impatient with teammates and refs and everything else, and she'll still have outbursts and things like that. But I think towards the second half of her career there, she handled those things much better and didn't let it throw her off her game. Some might take shots at the legacy of Bluder and Caitlin Clark as they did not win the championship. I don't do that. I think they did what they needed to do in terms of getting to the championship game. Yes, did they miss putting the cherry on the sundae? I think there's no doubt it feels that way. I said before this season started, they reminded me very much of the Houston Cougars in the 80s with Phi Slamma Jamma. As much like the Cougars, their championship to win was that first one versus LSU, and they took a calculated risk to not guard the three-point line, and Jan Carson just punished them, going 5 for 6 from the three-point line and ultimately shooting 64% on three-pointers, going 11 for 17. But much like Phi Slamma Jamma, I don't think anybody's ever going to forget the Iowa Hawkeyes and Caitlin Clark and the run that they went on the last 2 years in college basketball. The last thing I should mention on Iowa is it appears they're well set up moving forward, as longtime assistant coach Jan Jensen will be taking over for Bluder. She was basically been with Bluder from the very start of Bluder's coaching career. She actually played for Bluder and then went over to Europe for a year and then came back and has been her longtime assistant ever since. She can recruit. Obviously, she's helped develop all the post players. You would anticipate that Iowa would continue to be strong in the Big Ten under her tenure. Now, the other announcement in women's college basketball is that UConn announced another non-conference game for the 2025 season. They are going to play Southern Cal on the 21st of December, 2024 at Connecticut. It is a 2-year deal, so UConn will be in California playing Southern Cal in 2025. Because the Big East tends to be weak, they need to schedule a tough non-conference schedule. It appears they've done that, so they will be at Tennessee, who's obviously down, but still, it should be fun going down memory lane of years past of Pat and Gino going at it. As well, they have South Carolina at Notre Dame. They'll be at North Carolina and at Louisville. Their home non-conference so far is, as I mentioned, Southern Cal's coming to UConn. In addition, they are playing the University of South Florida. They still have 3 spots to fill in their non-conference schedule. Obviously, their non-conference needs to be tough because of the Big East, but still, South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Southern Cal on their schedule. That just looks like a lot of fun. And the real hope is they can have health next year and be fully loaded when they meet up with these teams, as I think that will really help women's college basketball on moving on to the next era post Caitlin Clark, as these games will be exceptional if everybody is healthy, and that is the hope, obviously. But you can already see how South Carolina would be hyped versus UConn, the old guard versus the new and upcomer. That would be fun. In addition, Southern Cal versus UConn. That'll be Paige and Juju going at it once again. And then throw in a bit of Kiki Arioffen versus Sarah Strong. And hopefully there's a bit of AZ Fudd in the mix going against Talia von Oelhoffen. And then finally, Notre Dame versus UConn. That's probably one of the ones I'm most excited to see next year, because Notre Dame got UConn in their house last year. But it will be made even funner as both teams are loaded, as Notre Dame has Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, and a whole bunch of other. They're stacked. It'll just be fun. So much star power that is going to be great to watch. I think those games are really going to help fill the void left by Caitlin Clark, as all 3 should be great games. But for me, if UConn's healthy, the one I want to see is South Carolina versus UConn. That's just going to be so good. So good if they're both healthy. Hopefully that happens. Anyway, let me know what game you're most looking forward to next year, as well your thoughts if you have any on Lise Bluder's retirement. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.